Last Thursday, there's a memorial service for Ron Brown. Bill Clinton is leaving it, and he's laughing it up, telling big-time jokes with his Secret Service person, whoever is standing next to him, and spots a camera way over there, and just watch it in slow motion, and you'll see it. Well, here it is, once again, bright sunny day. Look at everybody smiling here. See the president. You'll see him in just a moment, laughing, telling a joke, spots the camera. Watch the face. Watch this. Now, here comes a tear. We got a tear here, and the other guy's still laughing, if you know it. I mean, he doesn't even know what's going on.
In the annals of American history, few stories evoked as much intrigue and sorrow as that of Ronald Harmon Brown. Born on August 1st, 1941 in Washington, D.C., Ron Brown emerged as a pivotal figure in the Democratic Party, breaking barriers as the first African American to serve as the United States Secretary of Commerce under President Bill Clinton. As we delve into his remarkable life, we find a man of resilience and vision, dedicated to the principles of service and equality. But his story took a tragic turn on April 3rd, 1996, when he lost his life in a devastating plane crash in Croatia. This tragic event raises questions that linger to this day. Ron Brown was raised in Harlem, New York, in a middle-class family. His upbringing was marked by the values of community and philanthropy, as he was a member of Jack and Jill of America, an organization dedicated to nurturing leadership in African American youth. He attended prestigious schools, including Hunter College Elementary and Rhodes Preparatory School, where he faced the unique challenges of being one of the few black students. After graduating from Middlebury College and serving in the United States Army during the Vietnam War, Brown returned to civilian life with a determination to effect change. He joined the National Urban League, advocating for economic equality, and quickly climbed the ranks within the Democratic Party. His work culminated in his appointment as the chairman of the Democratic National Committee in 1989, where he played a crucial role in Bill Clinton's presidential campaign in 1992. On that fateful day, in April 1996, Ron Brown was on an official trade mission to promote economic opportunities in Croatia. The plane carrying Brown and 34 others, a U.S. Air Force CT-43, tragically crashed while attempting to land at Dubrovnik's Silipi Airport. The crash claimed all lives on board, except for one flight attendant who succumbed to her injuries later. The official investigation attributed the crash to pilot error and a poorly designed landing approach. But as is often the case with politically significant figures, the narrative felt incomplete. In the days following the crash, speculation and conspiracy theories began to circulate. Ron Brown was under investigation by independent counsel for allegations of corruption. His untimely death raised eyebrows and led many to question whether his death was merely a tragic accident or if it concealed a darker truth.
A published report said a second Armed Forces medical examiner says the corpse of Commerce Secretary Ron Brown seemed to have a bullet hole in the top of the head. The Pittsburgh Tribune-Review reported U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel David Haas says he saw an apparent bullet wound in the head, supporting the account of forensic pathologist examiner Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Steve Cogswell. According to the report, Haas and Cogswell, both members of the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology, participated in the agency's investigation of the April 1996 military jet crash in which Brown and 34 others died. An Air Force spokesman told United Press International that the wound to Brown's head superficially looked like a bullet wound, but, quote, scientific data, including x-rays, absolutely ruled it out, end quote. Cogswell, who never examined Brown's body but was the Air Force's man at the crash site, maintains that x-rays of Brown's head have disappeared from the Institute's file, including one that apparently shows bullet fragments. The Pittsburgh Tribune-Review has published some of the photos of the x-rays, and we will review some of them on this program. The Pittsburgh Tribune-Review has been accused of anti-Clinton bias because of its conservative leanings, but the NAACP and the Congressional Black Caucus have asked for explanations from the Justice Department, the Defense Department, and the White House. Ron Brown's own family, according to the New York Daily News, did not condemn the conservative participation and, quote, did nothing to dispel speculation that the Clinton administration may be covering up Brown's murder, end of quote. If Brown was murdered, did someone want him dead so badly they didn't mind killing 34 other people on the plane to silence him? I'm Tony Brown. In a moment, was Ron Brown shot?
When you were in Croatia, you received a phone call or communication about this hole. What was the communication?
Essentially that Brown had a .45-inch inwardly beveling circular hole in the top of his head.
You've been a forensic pathologist for some time. Does this appear to be, could this fit the description of a gunshot wound to the head by a .45 caliber pistol?
Notable figures including Kwesi Mfume, then head of the NAACP, and Congresswoman Maxine Waters expressed concern over the circumstances surrounding Brown's death. They sought more information, driven by fears of potential government cover-up. Adding to the intrigue, reports surfaced regarding a peculiar circular wound found on Brown's head when his remains were recovered. While forensic experts ultimately ruled it as a blunt force trauma, the mere existence of such an injury fueled speculation about foul play.
April 3rd, 1996, an Air Force jet carrying Secretary of Commerce Ron Brown and 34 others crashed while landing near Croatia's Dubrovnik airport. At the time of Ron Brown's death, he was under criminal investigation by an independent counsel. That investigation quickly ended with Brown's death, though Brown's son, Michael, and Brown's partner later pleaded guilty to charges related to Brown's alleged wrongdoing. Then in late 1997, stunning revelations were made in the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review. It was a series of investigative reports by reporter Christopher Ruddy. The Tribune-Review reported that 3 military pathologists believed there was significant evidence that Brown may have suffered a gunshot wound to his head, and that the cause of death as an accident could not be supported unless there was an autopsy. No autopsy was ever conducted on Brown. And when Brown's body was examined at Dover Air Force Base, officials found what appeared to be a perfectly round hole, consistent with a .45 caliber gunshot wound. And x-rays also indicated possible bullet fragments in Brown's head. These and other disclosures have become a focus of interest with Judicial Watch, a public interest law firm headed by Larry Klayman. And joining us today to discuss the cover-up of Ron Brown's death is Judicial Watch Chairman Larry Klayman and Newsmax.com editor Christopher Ruddy. Larry, let's start with you. You and your organization first uncovered the facts relating to the scandal that is known as Chinagate and Ron Brown at Commerce. How was Brown involved in all of these stories?
Brown was the mastermind, the implementer of the scheme to sell out seats on trade missions, to sell high technology to the Chinese and others. This was devised by Hillary Clinton. That business partner you talked about, Nolanda Hill, had testified to this. No one refuted it. The court dared the White House to come in with other evidence. It hasn't occurred. So consequently, When Ron Brown's plane goes down during the week that he had been scheduled to testify to Judicial Watch, but got a postponement to go to Bosnia instead, it obviously raises a lot of questions.
Larry, you've spoken with Brown's business partner, as you say, Yolanda Hill. Hill told you what had happened to Brown in the days just before his death. The independent counsel, Daniel Pearson, was closing in on Brown. Brown went to see Bill Clinton.
That's right. What happened was this. This independent counsel started before this plane crash occurred. This counsel was a Democrat out of Miami. Brown went to Clinton, according to Yolanda Hill, and said to Clinton, unless you get this Democrat independent counsel off my back, I may have to turn state's evidence. I may have to cooperate. And Clinton's response was barefoot, according to Yolanda Hill, up on a footstool, which is his way of walking around the White House. Arms crossed. That's nice. Almost like an organized crime figure. That's nice. The icy chill in the room was so great that Yolanda Hill has told us that Ron Brown just walked out at that point. And it was within the next 2 weeks that he was sent to Bosnia. He did not know that he was scheduled to go there.
Never heard it. As a reporter, I've never heard it before. This plane crash came at a very convenient time. As a former federal prosecutor, Larry, should this have been dismissed so easily as another accident?
It can't be dismissed as an accident. It can't be dismissed because it's irrefutable. As we represent Kathleen Janowski and Steve Cogswell, two people in the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology that actually played a role in investigating the death. It cannot be disputed that what you have in Ron Brown's head is a bullet hole.
Chris Rudding, you broke this story in that great newspaper, the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review. And your articles continue on Newsmax.com. I want you to explain to us now how Brown could have been shot considering the plane had crashed.
George, I think everything people have heard about this case is probably false or misleading, although certainly that the press and the government has told. We know that the Air Force report on the crash states categorically that the weather was not bad, that the weather did not contribute to the crash. You asked the average American, they thought that it was the worst weather ever in Croatia that day. Second, the Air Force, for the first time in their history of airplane investigations on friendly territory, decided they were immediately going to declare this an accident without a full investigation. And then the third thing, George, I think is the most disturbing. When the military officials at Dover Air Force Base examined Brown's body, they found what appeared to be a gunshot wound. Now, we don't know how that gunshot wound was made, but you do an autopsy, you do an investigation, and instead, what they did was a cover-up of the facts of this case.
Fred, Larry, it seems shocking to me that they found this evidence. Did anybody call the FBI? Did anyone contact the Brown family? Why wasn't there an autopsy? Why didn't they conduct one?
No, as a matter of fact, it was worse than that. And of course, we get this story about what happened with Clinton in the Oval Office from Yolanda Hill. And it's interesting enough that Yolanda Hill is the only one who winds up getting indicted and having to do hard time. Michael Brown gets off scot-free. Other people don't go to jail. Yolanda Hill, the person that comes forward and tells the story about Brown's encounter with the president, goes to jail.
And let's underscore, George, this was a Commerce Secretary, a member of the President's cabinet.
Yes.
There was significant evidence of homicide. All of the pathologists agreed at Dover Air Force Base there was apparent gunshot wound that needed an autopsy. No autopsy was conducted. It is standard procedure that an autopsy be conducted.
As the investigation unfolded, many questioned the thoroughness of the Air Force's inquiry. Some critics argued that the investigation was conducted hastily to quell the rising tide of conspiracy theories. The fact that Ron Brown was a prominent political figure with ties to ongoing investigations only intensified suspicions. Reports indicated that Brown had recently traveled to Vietnam on behalf of the Clinton administration, carrying an offer to normalize relations between the United States and the former communist nation. This trip made him a person of interest in various political circles, leading to speculation over whether his death was somehow tied to these diplomatic efforts. Despite the tragic end to his life, Ron Brown's legacy lives on. He was posthumously awarded the Presidential Citizens Medal by President Bill Clinton, an honor accepted by his widow, Alma Brown. His contributions to society and the Democratic Party are commemorated through various awards and scholarships, including the Ron Brown Scholarship Program, which supports young African Americans in their pursuit of higher education. The Ronald H. Brown Center for Civil Rights and Economic Development continues to inspire future generations. Yet, as we remember Ron Brown, we must confront the lingering questions surrounding his death. Was it merely a tragic accident, or does it reflect the perilous intersections of politics, power, and possibility? The truth remains elusive, with many believing that the official narrative does not capture the full story. In politics, especially for those who challenge the status quo, the stakes can be dangerously high. The unanswered questions about Ron Brown's death serve as a stark reminder of the complexities within the political landscape. As we reflect on Ron Brown's life, we honor not just the man but also the ideals he represented. His journey reminds us that success is not a solitary endeavor. It is about uplifting others and creating pathways for future leaders. In the end, the mystery of Ron Brown's death challenges us to seek the truth, to question the narratives we are fed, and to remain vigilant in our pursuit of justice and equality. As we continue to explore the legacy of those who came before us, let us keep the door open and the ladder down for those who will follow.
What black power means does not indicate, imply, ramify into, nor does it dictate that black power means anti-white.
In the annals of American politics, few figures shine as brightly as Congressman Mickey Leland. A dedicated public servant from Texas, he was not just a politician. He was a beacon of hope for the hungry and oppressed, particularly in East Africa. His unwavering commitment to combating famine and advocating for the marginalized marked him as a true champion of the people. But on August 7th, 1989, Mickey Leland's life was cut tragically short in a plane crash in Gambela, Ethiopia, during a humanitarian mission. Today we delve into the circumstances surrounding his mysterious death, an event shrouded in intrigue, unanswered questions, and whispers of possible government involvement. Born George Thomas Leland III on November 27, 1944, in Lubbock, Texas, a predominantly African-American neighborhood. His rise to prominence began with his education at Texas Southern University, where he became a leader in the civil rights movement. After serving in the Texas House of Representatives, Leland was elected to the U.S. House in 1979, representing Texas's 18th district. His legacy was cemented as he chaired the Select Committee on Hunger, where he tirelessly fought against hunger and malnutrition, particularly in Africa. However, as Leland gained prominence, so too did the challenges he faced.
Mickey Leland attended Atherton Elementary and Phyllis Wheatley High School. He then attended Texas Southern University.
He went into pharmacy and college intending to go to medical school. but soon after was propelled into government and politics and left his fledgling pharmacy career behind.
As a result of Mickey's political activities, John and Dominique de Menil spotted him.
John de Menil was quite an interesting character, liberal, leftist, very, very wealthy. He was determined to make a difference in Houston. Curtis Graves introduced him to Mickey Leland, and John de Menil fell in love with Mickey. And from that time on, he was a major supporter of Mickey Leland.
The de Menils were these extraordinarily sophisticated and civilized people, but basically they funded his political career, which gave him an enormous amount of freedom.
They were very supportive of Mickey because they found in him someone who had a similar capacity to be concerned about others.
It was a time when change was afoot in Texas politics.
I mean, Mickey really was a sight to see when he first showed up. He had an afro about the size of a basketball, and he wore a big old chain around his neck and a dashiki. And
first time I saw him, I said, I don't know what we're doing here. Who is this guy?
First day of the legislature, the Speaker of the House had to go down and beg him to take the chain off and dashiki and put on a suit because he couldn't come out on the House floor without a suit and a tie.
First man I ever saw carry a purse. And I said I thought it was legitimate because men had to be bag men in politics to carry the money they needed.
And suddenly Craig and Mickey showed up, and it was like the Craig and Mickey show. The Texas legislature had never seen anything like this.
And yet he would come over with some of those old people that were some of the most right-wing, reactionary, conservative, whatever you want to call them, don't change, head-in-the-sand groups. And before you know it, they got together and they started to like each other.
Mickey wasn't in it for himself. He wasn't in it to get famous. He wasn't trying to get rich. He was trying to help people.
Mickey realized that he could accomplish more for more people by doing that than he could by making a living for himself as a pharmacist.
In the mid-1980s, he spearheaded efforts to address the famine crisis in Ethiopia and Sudan, bringing international attention to the plight of millions. His work garnered respect, but it put him in the crosshairs of political tensions and power dynamics. On that fateful day, in August 1989, Leland was on a mission to assess the humanitarian crisis in Fugnido, Ethiopia, when his plane tragically went down, killing all 16 on board.
Nearly a week passed with no sign of the missing. But hope had not been forsaken.
Leland's disappearance is causing an outpouring of concern all over Houston. This morning, Houston City Council members prayed for him and others with him. Last night, 400 people attended a prayer vigil held for him and the 13 other people on his plane. For now, the search for Leland and his entourage has ended in Ethiopia, where it is 8 o'clock at night.
We all pray that he's safe and that he and the others with him on that humanitarian mission will be found and that they'll all be safe.
Among the deceased was renowned writer Roberta Warwick, known for her poignant stories of Africa. But what exactly happened on that flight? Eyewitness accounts and reports from the region raised eyebrows. Was it merely an accident, or was there something more sinister at play?
Shedding his dashiki, Leland made his way to the United States House of Representatives, filling a seat vacated by Barbara Jordan.
Mickey was a talker, and Mickey would talk with anybody about anything. And even though they disagreed with him, and sometimes hated what he was saying, they ended up loving him as a person, and he loved and respected them as persons, in spite of the disagreement.
But he would also do things that were kind of off the beaten path of being Houston's congressman. He never limited himself to that.
Mickey jumped on every issue that came up, to be honest with you. Making sure that the bilingual amendment to the Voting Rights Act stayed in place. I was working for him when he went on the floor of the House and spoke in Spanish, which is in violation of the House rules to speak in a foreign language.
Mickey knew all along that he was part of a larger cause.
One of the great things about him as a person was that he learned to educate his constituents that he would fight for their interest, but fight for larger causes too.
He was a civil libertarian. He was a humanist. It had nothing to do with the color of his skin. So if he talked about the rights of Palestinians to Israelis, it wasn't as a black, it wasn't even as an American. It was a passion of civil liberties, of human freedom.
It's Friday, and we've had false signal after false signal, and they still have not been found. With our technology, with our sophistication, there should be more definition of this thing by now.
World News Saturday. Here's Carol Simpson.
Good evening. It's been 5 days since a plane carrying Texas Congressman Mickey Leland and 15 others disappeared in the wilds of Ethiopia. And still there's no word, no signs of what could have happened. 4 U.S. helicopters joined what's now become an international search for the congressman's plane. A search that had to be called off early today on account of bad weather. As each day passes, however, there's growing fear that the outcome of the search may produce a tragic result. We have 2 reports, and we begin with Richard Sergey in Addis Ababa.
Poor weather in the Ethiopian capital briefly delayed today's search operation. It gave the crews flying the American Black Hawk helicopters a little extra time to get ready for their first mission here.
Looking for a down twin otter, white with blue markings, best we can determine. We all know we don't know exactly where it's at.
With the weather improving, the choppers, which are able to fly lower and for longer periods, took off. 2 giant U.S. Hercules with sophisticated electronic gear on board also joined in. While the rescue planes are in the air, a U.S. Ethiopian task force continually monitors their progress. The Air Force released pictures of their search today in a remote and rugged area to the west of the Ethiopian capital. The helicopters, which are refueled in midair, are crisscrossing the flight path to a refugee camp where Leland's plane was heading before it disappeared. Late today, the rescue aircraft returned from the intensive search without finding any trace of the missing plane. But 2 of Leland's congressional colleagues, here to monitor the situation, say they haven't given up hope.
We'll be going out every day until we locate Congressman Leland's plane and his party.
Mickey's my brother. Until we find him and know everything that we have to know, I'm going to remain optimistic.
Tonight, a U.S. Embassy official defended the military's effort from criticism that not enough was being done to find Leland.
To date, we have searched an area of 100,000 miles, which is equivalent to the state of Wyoming.
Publicly, U.S. officials say they are optimistic that Leland's plane will be found, but privately they are expressing pessimism with each passing day. Richard Sergey, ABC News, Addis Ababa.
This is Kathleen Dulaski in Washington. After a detailed briefing from State and Defense Department officials this morning, Leland's staff members withdrew yesterday's criticism of the U.S. government search effort.
We have assurances that the commitment from the top, which we knew existed and which we acknowledged, that commitment is still there. And further, that sense of commitment and sense of urgency are now operating at all levels.
We had no doubt yesterday that we were conducting this thing with diligence and with all the available resources and all necessary resources, and now we seem to be all in agreement.
To demonstrate their diligence, Pentagon officials gave the press an exhaustive briefing and explained that weather and a lack of information had hindered their search. Leland's plane was headed for a refugee camp 260 miles west of the Ethiopian capital. But since the plane carried enough fuel for a return trip, search teams say it could have veered off course as much as 500 miles. Also, searchers are losing hope that they will pick up signals from an emergency locator beacon on board the plane.
As time passes, the power output of that emergency locator beacon will decline, eventually to the point we won't be able to hear it anymore.
Captain Bloyer says if anyone survived after the plane went down, given the moderate climate, they could still be alive. Although that hope is fading, the U.S. government is intensifying its search. The Pentagon is sending 5 more search and transport planes and 100 additional people to be in place by Monday, making this the largest military search for a civilian that Pentagon officials can remember. Kathleen Delaski, ABC News, the Pentagon.
The search had grown into a national obsession in Ethiopia. Regular flights were cancelled. The American military arrived and with the aid of the Ethiopian Air Force combed hundreds and thousands of square miles. The cooperation was extraordinary since the relationship between Ethiopia and the United States at the time was strained. But Mickey Leland was not an ordinary visitor here.
In the wake of his death, questions emerged. The plane crash occurred during a time of heightened political tensions regarding U.S. aid to Africa. Leland had recently met with prominent figures like Pope John Paul II and Cuban President Fidel Castro, advocating for humanitarian efforts. Could his outspoken nature have made him a target? Over the years, various conspiracy theories have emerged regarding Leland's death. Some suggest government involvement, arguing that his advocacy for hunger relief threatened the status quo. Was he silenced to prevent him from uncovering deeper issues within the aid system? His efforts to engage in international diplomacy and humanitarian relief would have been perceived as a challenge by those who preferred a more traditional approach to foreign policy. In the years following his death, Leland's legacy continued to inspire change. Numerous initiatives and buildings have been named in his honor, including the Mickey Leland International Terminal at Houston's George Bush Intercontinental Airport, and various educational programs aimed at empowering young men and women. Yet the question lingers, why did the investigation into the crash seem to fade into obscurity? Why were the circumstances surrounding his death not more thoroughly examined? Leland once said, "I am as much a citizen of the world as I am of this country." His commitment to global citizenship and humanitarian efforts left an indelible mark, yet it also left a trail of unanswered questions. As we reflect on his contributions, we must also remember the mystery that surrounds his tragic end, a reminder that sometimes the truth remains hidden in the shadows of power. Mickey Leland's life was one of courage and compassion. While we may never fully understand the circumstances of his death, we can honor his legacy by continuing the fight against hunger and injustice worldwide. Let us not forget men and women like Mickey Leland who have dedicated their lives to serving others.
Welcome to our exploration of a haunting story that intertwines activism, surveillance, and tragedy. Today, we delve into the suspicious death of Darren Seals, a prominent Ferguson activist whose life was cut short under mysterious circumstances. What really happened on that fateful day in September 2016? Welcome to the Angel Network 1930. If you appreciate our work, please consider liking and subscribing. We delve into important issues from a Black, Afro-descended perspective, providing insights and analysis that matter. Join us on this journey as we explore, educate, and empower. Your support helps us continue to bring these vital discussions to the forefront. Thank you for being part of our community. Darren Seals emerged as a powerful voice during the protests that followed the tragic death of Michael Brown in 2014. But who was Darren Seals? A self-described revolutionary, he became known for his fierce criticism of police brutality and his calls for justice. Can you imagine the courage it takes to stand up against systems of oppression, knowing the potential consequences? Seals did just that. Fast forward to September 6, 2016. Seals was found shot to death in his vehicle, which had been set on fire. The police labeled it a homicide, but the case remains unsolved. Why has justice not been served for Darren? In a shocking revelation, a heavily redacted FBI file recently came to light, indicating that Seals was under surveillance. What did the FBI know, and why was he being watched? The 900-page document, almost entirely redacted, reveals that law enforcement had pulled Seals over at the request of the FBI. What could justify such surveillance? Was it merely monitoring a self-described revolutionary, or something far more sinister? The file indicates that during one traffic stop in June 2016, Seals was investigatively detained for about 20 minutes. But what does this even mean? Was he a target, or were authorities merely doing their job? Though the FBI claimed there were warrants for his arrest, he was ultimately let go. Was this a mere coincidence, or did something deeper lie beneath the surface? Many activists have faced untimely deaths, but the circumstances surrounding Seals' murder raises questions that demand answers. The FBI file hints at a concern over potential protests following his death. Why would they anticipate violent backlash? What did they know that we don't? Notably, Seals was critical of national Black Lives Matter leaders, accusing them of profiting from the movement while neglecting the very community that was suffering.
But we talking about Black Lives Matter campaigns, but they are the same. Like, they all run together. It's this little gay cult, Twitter fingers, like my man Cap call them. Twitter activists. Cause they don't do shit, but tweet while we was in the streets, turn shit up, protest. Certain people was protesting, certain people was rioting, certain people was organizing and making moves. They was just sitting back tweeting, Twitter fingers, we all put things on social media so the world can know, but they literally just sat there and tweeted the whole shit. But while they tweeted the whole shit, white folk, black people ain't on Twitter. Like, how many of y'all on Twitter? Don't nobody be on Twitter. That's white folk shit. So while they tweeting, they playing cat and mouse with the white folks. They racist. They hiding behind fake pages on Twitter, talking shit, going back and forth, retweet. It's like a big ass show. So you got a lot of people sending them money, turning them into stars. Oprah tweeting at her and all that. They calling her fucking the face of Ferguson. Don't nobody know who the fuck she is. She ain't the face of shit. Wasn't even out there. When she came out there, she just sat there and tweeted. Like, what you the face of Twitter? That's what I call them. But anyways, man, a lot of people don't understand Black Lives Matter as an organization. They think it's just a hashtag and people just saying, man, anytime white folks are part of it, they putting it in the media, something behind it. Believe that. You got a Twitter, but you don't be on the motherfucker. I ain't never seen you on Twitter. I got a Twitter too, but shit, who uses that shit for real? Like, we use it for promo and little shit like that, but we ain't really using no goddamn Twitter. Anyways, feel free to comment and give y'all opinions on this whole Black Lives Matter bullshit. But anyways, Black Lives Matter is a bunch of computer nerds. First of all, them being gay is, I don't got nothing against them because they gay. I don't agree with the lifestyle of homosexuality, but I don't agree with a lot of shit people do. I'm not gonna dislike you because you do some shit I don't like. I'm pretty sure I do shit people don't like, I don't agree with, ain't healthy for me in their eyes. So we just disagree on lifestyles, but that ain't why. But they use that shit as a shield. When they doing all this bullshit, they try to come say, oh, he's just homophobic. He hated, man, my auntie been married to a woman since forever. Like, I don't agree with the lifestyle because I don't see a long-term benefit of it.
Could his outspoken nature have made him a target? The document outlines that much of the redacted content pertains to investigative techniques and private information about others. What secrets are hidden within those pages? As we piece together the fragments of Darren Seals' story, we must consider the broader implications. How does the surveillance of activists affect the fight for justice? And what does it mean for those who dare to challenge the status quo?
It's obvious that he was murdered. It's obvious that he was targeted. And I can't even begin to do justice to the story. And this is nothing but just rogue gangster stuff right here. And I know that many of us want to turn a blind eye concerning the things that are going on in America. But when you deal with facts, and if you was to put yourself in the same position, the same shoes as a lot of these people, you wouldn't be blinded to exactly what's going on. There's some bad stuff going on in this country. I mean, really bad stuff.
In the aftermath of his death, conspiracy theories began to circulate, suggesting that he may have been killed due to his affiliations with Black Lives Matter. Are these theories grounded in truth? Or are they merely products of a grieving community desperate for answers? Activist James Cooper, who fought for transparency, obtained the FBI filed through the Freedom of Information Act. What does it say about our society when citizens have to fight for information that should be publicly accessible? Darren Seals' story is not just about one man. It's a reflection of a larger struggle. As we look into the shadow of his death, we must ask ourselves, what are we willing to sacrifice for justice? Stay tuned as we continue to unravel the mysteries surrounding Darren Seals. His story is a reminder that the fight for justice is often fraught with danger, but it is a fight worth undertaking. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Remember, the quest for truth is never over. Thank you for joining us on this journey with the Angel Network 1930. We hope you find our discussion insightful and thought-provoking. If you appreciated our work and the perspectives we shared, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us continue to analyze important issues from a Black Afro-descendant perspective. Together we can amplify our voices and foster understanding in our communities. Stay tuned for more content, and remember to share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, take care and keep the conversation going.